What's up, everybody? Oh my goodness, it's Friday night once again. Hello, Eric. How you doing? Wow, I love when we start a show and we have people popping up right away. That's so nice. So it's Friday night. It's Christmas Day. So if you're joining me, it must mean that you're either bored out of your mind or you're a dedicated alcoholic and you want to come to the bar, which I like. Tonight's going to be awesome. Hey, Stacy, I have a guest tonight. So I'm going to blow through the rules real quick so I can get to my guest because I'm very, very excited to talk to this guy. So let me switch it up here so you guys can see that my rules are up there. Let me change that so you can actually see the rules on top. So rule number 1, real simple. You are welcome to ask any kind of paranormal related questions. And I'll give you my skeptical opinion. That's pretty much it. We talk, we have a discussion. It's fun to do. Number 2 is that I don't know everything. And that's just the plain simple truth. I don't know everything. But if I can, I'll look it up. We will look something up and we'll discuss it even further. If I can't do it or it's too in-depth, I will write it down on my handy-dandy notepad and I will look it up and get back to you later. Rule number 3 is listen to Patrick Swayze and be nice. That's it. Roadhouse, man. Just be nice. This is not about arguing and calling names. If you call people names and really, if you're a dick, I'm going to boot you. You won't be in here anymore. So that's about it for that. Rule number 4, pretty simple. If you have a question for me or the guest tonight, please put a Q or the word question before your comment, and that lets me go through the comments much easier and find your questions. And then rule number 5, drink up. Sound off, everyone. Let me know what you're drinking, where you're from, and we will get into this. And I'm ready to bring him in. I'm going to read his bio. I'm totally stealing his bio off his website, so it's totally cheating on my part, but here we go. Ross Blocher is the co-host of All No Rush and Carry. Awesome podcast. Ross was born into a family of evangelical Christians and spent a good amount of time in churches of various denominations. That's going to be fun. I want to talk about that. He was singing in churches or church choirs, serving as an acolyte, and memorizing lots of scripture. Meanwhile, he busied himself reading books about ghosts, like it, vampires, aliens, and chupacabras. Woo! In college, while serving as president of Bible study camp, president of a Bible study group, he started attending skeptical lectures and reading science books, coming to the conclusion that he'd been wrong about reality his whole life. Oh my goodness. While the beliefs went away, his interest in them didn't. And Ross spent the time since trying to find out why people believe what they do and participating in independent investigations group, which is now, I believe, CFIIG, which investigates claims of paranormal from a scientific point of view. I'm going to stop right there. I'm going to bring him on because he can talk about himself so much better than I can. And there he is.
Hey.
What's up? How you doing, buddy?
Good to see you.
Was that a good intro?
Yeah. Oh, that was an excellent intro. And you're right. I need to go back there and change that to CFIIG. That's right. It's no longer independent. It's very dependent on the Center for Inquiry.
Right. Right. Oh, my goodness. So I'm so excited. This was great. I actually reached out to you like a week ago, 2 weeks ago, maybe? No, a week ago. And I was very excited. Like I think I heard your last podcast and you were taking a break for a couple weeks. And I was like, oh, shit. And the first thing I'm going to do is try to get them onto another podcast.
Oh, no. This is good. Well, hopefully some of my listeners happen to wander by here and get to enjoy some additional content if they're missing it this week.
Okay. Wow. Bob's saying I'm not clear. Hopefully I clear up.
And it's an honor to be here and talking to you. You do excellent skeptical work. So always find that you keep up on your investigations.
I appreciate it. I try. I mean, I like getting in depth and I've learned part of that from you guys. I mean, you and Carrie, I mean, your investigations are just amazingly in depth. I love it's not, I guess when I compare it to, like, mine is really, really highly detailed. And yours is detailed too, but you have your own commentary, which is great. I love the interaction between you two.
Yeah, we've gotten more detailed over time. I go back and look at some of the early episodes and wonder, wait, how did we cover Mormonism in 2 really short episodes? Because now we go on forever and talk about everything. And there's always kind of 2 pulling forces. Me, who wants to put just every detail into the show, no matter how boring. And Carrie, who has more of a mind for what's actually interesting, is trying to keep it moving along. So there's always kind of this push and pull, me pulling to be like, wait, but I still have 3 pages of notes on this one this one speaker. And Carrie's like, no, we're done. We've said everything interesting.
Yeah, I have that.
Right.
I get that a little bit. You know Ben Radford, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he's my editor. So I send him stuff, and sometimes he's like, yeah, that's a little long.
No one could know that.
Yeah.
I remember, like, I used to always wonder what those little ellipses were in the books, like the little dots. Why are the dots there? What does that mean? And then someone once finally told me that's where like a long section has been taken out because the editor said, yeah, we don't need this.
So let's start at the beginning, because it was actually interesting when I read your bio, and I had the idea of this. You grew up evangelical Christian, so can you explain that? And then we'll just go from there.
Okay. Well, I mean, evangelical just means essentially that you want to share it with everybody else. So it's not good enough that, you're just a Christian and you do your Christian thing and you go to church, once a week. If you're evangelical, you go to church at least twice a week, and you want to make sure it is your goal that everybody else accepts Jesus, and, it makes that the new focus of their lives, storing up treasures in heaven. And originally I spent the first 10 years of my life in the Assemblies of God Church. If anyone's heard of that, it's definitely like a charismatic holy roller kind of group that regularly practices speaking in tongues and things like that. And then I spent
when you said speaking in tongues, like, does that mean like they're normal, like during a normal service? They're like,
did you say yodeling?
Do they a normal service? Do they start just speaking in tongues? Like, what's that?
That's pretty common at Assemblies of God churches. So yeah, the way that would normally work is there's a couple things to clarify here. This is a good point. So there's some debate when you read about it in the Bible when it refers to people speaking in tongues, because sometimes it makes it sound like xenoglossy, where you're just suddenly speaking a language that you've never studied or learned. Like, hey, Ross is suddenly speaking Latin. That's crazy. And some people in some denominations will very much say that's the only real phenomenon. The other one is glossolalia, which is speaking in the tongues of angels. And that's the one that you hear televangelists use that sounds like babble. I was going to try to do it, but I don't even want to try. But
come on, try it.
Some people can like, what's his name? Dan Barker, like, he was a minister many years ago. Now he's like an atheist with Freedom from Religion Foundation. He can still speak in tongues at the drop of a hat.
Wow.
I have a story to tell about I've only spoken in tongues one time, and that's an interesting story. But anyway, so then there's a whole contingent who believes that is speaking in tongues, and they point to different scriptures and say, no, it very clearly says here, like in I want to say 1 Corinthians 12. I haven't checked in a bit, but it says this is speaking in tongues that men cannot understand. So to return to your question, what would happen in a service is someone would just yell out. Some lady in her 60s would start speaking in this loud tongue, and no one knows what she's saying, and it sounds like a lot of, and then someone else chimes in and they do the interpretation, and they say, oh, I am the Lord your God, and I keep you under my wing, and I am here to protect you, and I love you, and you are my chosen people. And that'll go on for like another 5 minutes.
Wow.
So there's the message, and then there's the interpretation.
Wow. And this is all spontaneous? Like,
wow. Yeah, you think that would make the ministers very nervous, and it has caused a lot of strife in certain churches. In fact, I've even seen that with my own mother-in-law being sometimes chastised for doing that in a church that wasn't as comfortable with that. So it changes from congregation to congregation. For any of you raised in that, can I get an amen?
Oh, my wife is chiming in saying I speak in after too much rum. I do want to say before we move on to everyone in the chat room that's watching, we have a contest tonight. There's a contest going on, so you can win. Let me get some of the stuff out of the way here. But I have 2 copies of this. My Name is Stardust by Bailey Harris. It's her special edition with a foreword by Richard Dawkins. Really good. It's good for kids that want to learn about critical thinking and get into science. But our contest tonight is basically, some point tonight there will be 2 secret phrases that will appear somewhere on the screen. I'm not going to tell you how or where or when, but sometime. And if you have a child that's like a son, daughter, niece, nephew, brother, sister, whatever, that could benefit from this book, and you're the first person that types that phrase into the chat room and that we see it, you'll win in the United States, because I can't ship outside the United States because it's too expensive. But if you're in the United States, you can definitely win. I'll ship this book out to you. So we have 2 copies. All right, so 1 per secret phrase. I just want to put that out there. And then now we can get back to our regular scheduled program. So, all right. So you grew up in this church environment. Like you were a believer, like in like Jesus, God, and this kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's funny the way you say it makes it sound like you never were. But
I was.
Oh,
I grew up Catholic.
Okay.
So
Yeah. Very different flavor of belief and practice. But yeah, absolutely. Before I could speak, I have, home videos of this. There were videos of myself singing Christian songs before, I could really sing the full song. Jesus loves me, this I know, and I'm speaking words that don't even make sense yet. So, very much raised in it. So, when I talk about a deconversion, it doesn't really make sense because, I wasn't really converted in the first part. I was just inculcated, steeped, if you will. Okay. So, I spent 10 years in the Assemblies of God Church. And after my parents divorced, I would go to church with my dad on Sundays. Sundays were Dad's day. And so that meant we went to a Methodist church where I was for 7 years and did the singing in the choir and being an acolyte and wearing the robes and all that stuff. But meanwhile, occasionally I would go with my mom to church, especially Wednesday nights. So that would be a combination of like Baptists, Assemblies of God, Christian and Missionary Alliance. That's a very small denomination. A lot of different types of churches that I would visit in that time. And then in high school, when I started dating the woman who is now my wife, we were going to an Assemblies of God church where her mom was a pastor. And then in college, I started going to Presbyterian churches, and I'm still a member of a Presbyterian church in my local town where I'm good friends with everybody, and they just know me as the village atheist.
All right, that's not bad. But you're on good terms with everybody, though.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
An important thing for me as I was leaving, I didn't leave because, Christians want to say that people who leave because they're angry at God or, God let them down, or they saw corruption in the church and too many hypocrites. Those are usually kind of the things that they'll point to and say, oh, somebody let you down. No, it's none of that. Or, I wasn't, what's another one, like, being willful or just wanting to live a sinful lifestyle and not wanting God to stop me from it. None of that. I still live very much like a Mormon. I had theological problems as I was learning more about science, as I was learning more about the world and looking at the Bible in kind of a new light. That's sort of what led me away. When I was in college, there's a reason I guess all the parents get worried about their Christian kids going off to secular college, but it really wasn't the college's fault. I can't really blame them. It just happened to be at that time.
I think that's a story many of us go through. I mean, like I said, I was raised Catholic, and it wasn't because I was angry at anyone or anything. It was just the more I learned about the world, the more I questioned the faith-based practices, and was like, I don't think this exists. I really don't think this is real. And then I started the experiment. I don't know if you've done this or anyone else in the chat room has done this. Like, I started experimenting where it was like, okay, I was told like I had to say my prayers every night. Okay, what would happen if I didn't? you know?
Right.
And you know,
Oh, that's already dangerous. You're asking these questions.
Yep, yep. I mean, that's the kind of thing I started doing, and the more I experimented like that, like questioning by not doing it. What happens if I didn't go to church and I went to the playground instead, and
Right.
I came back and
Right.
just said I did? Nothing happened. I'm like, all right, so, so what was your, I guess, turning point? Was there any one turning point? I mean, I see that you were reading books on ghosts, and well, before I get to the turning point, was that an issue, like reading books on ghosts and monsters and aliens and stuff?
Yeah, well, I don't think it's uncommon within Christian circles for people to get really interested in the paranormal independently, but it rides as a sidecar as its own separate thing, and you know, certainly most churches won't like preach on such things. But I remember trying to work out little theories in my mind about how all of this could work together. So if you talked to me then, I would have strongly suspected that alien visitations were actually demonic. And I'm sure you've seen it. You know, many accounts of alien visitation involve strong sulfur smells. So I would see something like that and go, oh, ho, ho, I know why it smells like sulfur. That's demonic. So you know, there are books and documentaries to sell that point.
Okay, I was curious because I did see I saw that. I was like, I wonder if that was ever a problem. Because I did the same thing. I was very interested in my Catholic school, my grade school actually had 2 books in the library that were about ghosts. And those were the only 2 books I've ever checked out of that library because read them over and over again.
But that has theological implications, right? If you're saying that that souls stick around and that you can see them as ghosts, well, then that you know, that works against what you read in the Bible, that to be absent from the body is to be present with God. And for consistency seekers like us, you know, that's something Carrie and I talk about often on the podcast, is that there's a certain mindset, the consistency seekers, people who really you know, get a seed in their teeth when they encounter something that doesn't quite fit with what they're supposed to believe. And they just keep working at it with their tongues, you know, going, okay, wait a second, how does that fit in? And I need to resolve this. Otherwise I can't go on. Whereas other people just be like, yeah, I believe in ghosts, but I also believe in Jesus. No big deal. So I was definitely the consistency seeker type.
I see a lot of that because even though I delve into like a lot of the fringe topics like ghosts and UFOs and aliens, Bigfoot, whatever, ghost hunting community is what I'm into the most. And I do see that a lot. There's a lot of people that are Christian that, you know, they do their protection stuff beforehand, like where they all wear their cross and they pray. They have a prayer circle going in before it. And it always fascinated me, like, shouldn't, like, I guess I don't know how to approach it, because on one side I'm like, well, shouldn't you believe they all crossed over? But on the other hand, you guys are all looking and say that there's absolutely proof of this all over the place, like thousands of cases of ghosts all over the country and the world. You know, that never jived with me. That never balanced out. It just seemed like it was a weird thing. So what was your turning point? What really got you to, because you said you stopped believing the more you read about science, but was there anything, like one thing?
Yeah. Well, what really started it for me was it was like instruction in class in college, but I had all of 2 science courses that were required in my 4 years of college studying animation. You know, that's what I do. That's my other passion. You know, that's what my day job. And so I was studying that. And
what is your day job, if you don't mind?
Oh yeah. So I'm a training manager at Disney Animation Studios. So I help contribute to all of the full-length feature films, things like Moana and Frozen 2 and Ralph Breaks the Internet, and now Raya and the Last Dragon coming in March. So I started there as a technical director, someone who takes all the different elements and puts them together. I worked on Princess and the Frog and a little 2011 film called Winnie the Pooh. And then after that, I moved into training. And so what we do is we set up I'll zoom out from that. Like the quick way to say it is that we create a culture of learning at the studio. We provide, figure drawing models and bring in animals to draw, and we set up film screenings, and we bring in outside speakers, and we set up all the classes and lectures and tool training and record everything and make it available. So yeah, cool. That's my day job, and super fun. Yeah, so I'm studying that at school, but then I have this science teacher, and all he did, other than answering patiently all of my questions about evolution, because I was a 6-day creationist at the time, and had watched enough Kent Hovind and other things to have all of these little pesky questions that he handled like a champ. But he handed out an extra credit sheet for everyone in the class and just said, hey, if you want some extra credit, you can attend one of these lectures. They happen on Sundays, and just write up a little report on it, and I'll give you some credit. And I looked at the list, and it was the Skeptic Society, Michael Shermer's group that met at Caltech at the time. And so I was just interested in the titles of these lectures. They sounded really cool, like, oh, the demise of the Y chromosome, and what's at the edge of the universe, and questions like that. So I think this was just kind of an early indication of what I would be doing for the podcast. I sort of went there as an interloper, just wanting to hear them talk about these topics. And I would go there, every time they had a lecture, like twice a month, and I would write reports. And eventually my teacher's like, you have the highest grade in the class, stop it. You don't need to write anything. I'm glad you're enjoying these. But I would read the books by the lecturers, and I would hear them make little jabs at belief in Christianity. And I had all of my internal monologue going on, saying things like, well, the foolishness of God is greater than man's wisdom. That's what 1 Corinthians 1:13 says, stuff like that. And over time, as I'm reading these books, I'm going to lectures, I'm asking questions. I'm starting to become increasingly aware of this internal dialogue. And I'm learning about evolution for the first time. And I understand, of course, many Christians have no problem with evolution and have incorporated it with their theology. But for my consistency seeking mind, I was saying, oh, this is actual science. And not only can I see that I was being taught the wrong thing, I can see how deceptive what I was being taught was. And so if all of my well-meaning teachers were feeding me this information, what else did I not understand? And so all of the Bible study meetings that I was leading every week at school became more about me trying to work through tricky parts of the Bible with my friends, like, help me out. What do we do with this whole bronze snake story and stuff like that? And so that was a big part of it. Also, for the first time, I was meeting out gay people, and that was something I wasn't used to. And I'm learning that previous friends I'd had were gay, and I didn't know. And I was feeling really bad about feeling bad about that. So all of those things were working on me, and it took about 1.5 years for me to finally kind of have it out with God and say, I need to look at the world in a different way. And that happened in 2004.
Wow. That's interesting. It's a weird experience, isn't it? Like when you start meeting people for the first time that you're not exposed to. Like you said, it's the first time you met openly gay people. Like that must have been like, did you at first, I don't want to dive too deep into it, but at first, were you like standoffish?
Yeah. I would trot out that same old line, love the sinner, hate the sin kind of thing. Right. But I felt dirty doing it. Yes, I should have.
Yeah. I mean, it's I guess it's bad. Like personally, I look back on some of the things I did like years and years ago, some of the things I said and did. And I was like, wow, like I was so ignorant at the time. And I just didn't know any better. And I just went along with like the mentality of family and the social, I guess, group that I was in rather than thinking for myself. And that's one of the great things about getting into, well, for me, for skepticism, and it just opened up another world where it's like, all right, I'm going to think for myself I'm not going to think the way everyone else wants me to think. I'm going to I have to say, I'm getting distracted by the lights. Is the light in your room flickering?
Yeah. Yes, it probably is. So that is a chandelier.
Obviously you have like demons.
Yes, clearly. You know, so actually, there's kind of a fun story to this, and yeah, sorry for the flickering, but it sort of
It's
adds.
all right. I mean, it's not distracting in a bad way. It was just like I
Yeah.
kept thinking, like, do you have a ghost?
So we're up at my mother-in-law's place, and yeah, good flicker right there. Uh-oh, is that a sign? And I've talked about this house on the podcast before because my wife was raised in this home built in 1893.
Ooh.
It's in Watsonville, California, kind of Central Coast area, and where my wife and I met, and where I went to two different Christian schools. And anyway, so it's all dark wood paneling in here, and it is rather creepy. And there are ghost stories that this family tells. Even Kara's sisters talk about times that they saw blue glowing lights and got dizzy walking into certain rooms, especially the room across the hallway here has stories, and it still has a crack in the door from a woman who was suffering some sort of mental problems many years before this family owned the house. And so yeah, you can like still see the crack from her trying to like break the door. So anyways, when I tell the story about like trying to freak my wife out with this scary porcelain looking doll, that was one that I placed just in the corner over here to freak her out when she walked into this room. And when I was a believer, I remember walking upstairs into this house at night and really being freaked out that I might see a ghost. Freaked out / excited, of course, because we're investigators, right?
Right.
But so anyways, yeah, that's kind of the story of this house.
Now all I can think about is, all right, the next time I'm out in California, we got to get together. I want to investigate this house. Like the blue light. Like, what's the blue? Did they tell you about the blue light?
Yeah, they said like it hovered around and moved through a room, and then it stopped and disappeared. You know, it's like,
okay,
great story. I'd love to see it.
Yeah.
And nowadays, I'll walk up here when the lights are off, and I won't even think about it. You know, I'll just be rummaging around in the dark because I know the lay of the land. And every now and then it'll occur to me like, this would have freaked the hell out of me 20 years ago, and now I do it without even thinking about it.
I do that a lot. I mean, some of the local places around here that are said to be really haunted with all of this activity. I've gone there. I actually have a really good relationship with most of the historical places in here, in the area. And many of them let me have the place to myself. And I do that where I walk around at night with the lights off, and I've slept over at many of these places, either alone or with like one or two buddies that are investigating with me. And it's like, I have the best sleep. You would think you're in a haunted place that's supposed to be really scary. And I'm like, this is great.
It's always been my goal in life to get a really good deal on a house because people believe it's haunted and they don't want to live there. Because I'd sleep like a baby. We've talked about this before. For the show, I bought 4 haunted dolls on eBay, and a few nights slept with all of them next to my head. But Carrie then got some of them, and we shared them for a while, and we gave some out to our audience when we did a live show. But I've kept one, Lilith, and she lives on my bedside table. And so every night, you know, I go to bed next to a haunted doll, and with like a little voodoo implement under my pillow, and I totally forget about it. Don't think about it. You know, it doesn't bother me.
Now, 2 quick questions before I do have a question in the chat room, but did you give it the name Lilith?
No, that came from the seller. And I think the way I justify this to myself, because those haunted dolls can sell for a lot. I think the mean price was something like $60.
Right.
And I tell myself, you're paying for the storytelling.
Yes.
And each of them would come with this story about how it spoke once, or the person saw it move out of the corner of their eyes, or it survived the burning down of a house. There was always this little intricate story about how this ghost came to be haunted. So Lilith was her name, and she also had a zodiacal orientation as well, where she would interact with you differently based on your star sign. So since I'm a Leo, she's supposed to like me but want to play tricks on me.
Wow. Okay. That was my second question. Like, what was the story? Because I've done that too. It's almost weird. Like, I'm a grown man, but I have all these dolls, and not like action figures. I have dolls. I have actual dolls. I mean, oh crap! I'm gonna show you. I'm gonna grab it right now.
Nice.
Hold on. Here it is. Here's Blinky.
Yeah, I'm unfortunate. Blinky. Oh, nice. Is it one of the ones where you lay it down flat and the eyes close?
Yeah. I think you get. There you go.
Yeah, that's so creepy. I love it.
The story behind her is that yes, she looks at you and she'll blink, just standing here. So there's been, I think, 2 or 3 shows where I had her in the background here, and just told people, like, watch her, see if she blinks, see if she does anything, but none so far.
And did she?
No,
okay,
not yet.
Yeah, I now picture her just like up front, filling up, a third of the frame, just to see if she ever blinks.
Like, just keep her like this for the rest of the show.
Fun little related story with dolls. I'm sure most people here have seen the Talkie Tina episode of The Twilight Zone.
Yes,
and that's where she says, "I don't like you and I'm going to kill you." Well, she was based on a popular doll at the time, Chatty Cathy. And fun little tie-in with animation here, both Chatty Cathy and Talkie Tina were voiced by June Foray, a famous voice actor who you've heard in everything from Rocky and Bullwinkle. She was the voice of Rocky, to Witch Hazel, pretty much any witch character you ever saw in the old Looney Tunes cartoons, or in Disney, was voiced by June Foray. She also played Mulan's grandmother in that film. Anyways, just fun little
oh, that's cool
there.
That's cool. Yeah, I love that episode. That's great. All right, so let me get to the question before I move on to the questions I have. I haven't read this yet, so we're gonna see it put together for the first time.
Okay.
So Drew says, I'm having a crisis of conspiracy. While I still love UFO adjacent tales for entertainment, they are getting more Q et al. Infected. How do you balance enjoying the weird without prompting or promoting the bad? That's a good question.
Man, that's tough, because Q is infecting everything these days. I was just reading an article about how Q has kind of worked its way into the yoga and wellness community, where they'll share memes online that are all the soft pastel-y colors, but they'll say little Q-based messages, and if you follow that rabbit hole and start reading that kind of stuff, then you end up in a really ugly place. For Carrie and I, that's always been a difficult. I don't know if it's even a balance that we strike. I think we just had to kind of draw a line in the sand for ourselves and say, all right, the tagline of our show is "We show up so you don't have to." So we're going to spend money on these things. We're going to give money for conferences and memberships and books to people that normally we would want to boycott and not support. But we do this so everybody can know about it. So I think we just have to sort of put that aside. And we hope that if we comment honestly about it and share our thoughts, that in the end, we're not promoting. If anything, we're, trying to encourage rationality and skepticism.
And I think that's what you do. I mean, I feel the same way. Like, there's that. And I think I actually sat down and talked to Joe Nickel. I had an interview with him years ago, first time I've ever met him, and I was starstruck because I've read his work, I have all his books, and I had contacted him, and he's like, "Yeah, come on up, and I'll sit down and talk to you." And I asked him that question, like, how do you justify paying for this stuff when you don't believe it, and you most times you think it's total bullshit? Like, how do you justify it? And his simple answer was, look, I can do more damage by paying $35 to get into an event by writing about my experiences and writing a review than just bitching about it without doing it. You have to do it. And that's what I love about your show.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, so we've just kind of left that moral quandary kind of to the side. It reminds me, here's a little bit of a scoop. I can't wait to tell our audience about this. But on the show, we've been talking about Bob Larson, the exorcist.
Yes.
And breaking down a lot of content with him. It's been our longest running investigation where we've gone to many of his public exorcisms. We've bought his books. We've attended a conference, and we've signed up for the International School of Exorcism and gotten our certificate. So we're breaking all that down in our show. We've already released 7 episodes. And yesterday, was it yesterday? No, day before yesterday, I called up to their church, and I was nervous about this. I thought that they might at this point have some sort of alarm or alert that says, like, Ross Blocher, do not sell to him, he's bad, he's been exposing us. But no, I got Belinda on the phone and I said, hey, I'd like to sign up for the Advanced Academy of Deliverance. I heard I could get a $200 discount because I took the International School of Exorcism. And she said, okay, yeah, sure, what's your credit card? I waited to sign up for the Advanced Academy of Deliverance to see just if they were aware of us after we'd done 7 episodes on the International School of Exorcism. So that was pretty fun.
Oh my goodness. So I know, I don't know if I should jump ahead or not, because one of my questions is about that. I'll just ask it. Have you ever been caught? Like, have you ever been like recognized and exposed during your investigations?
Yeah, a few times, and for different reasons. So all right, I'll start with the most boneheaded one.
On your part or their part?
Our part. So we try to, and this is, I think, an important point to make about the show, because we're trying to have fun. We consider it equal parts information and comedy, what we do with the show. But we don't want the comedy to be at the expense of well-meaning people. That's our goal, at least. You know, I'm sure we fail at that sometimes, but usually we're making fun of ourselves too. So this is our idiot move, and kind of similar to what I just described with Bob, where we were going to the Ordo Templi Orientis meetings in the La Crescenta area. And so this is a kind of an Aleister Crowley flavored form of dark magic that involves naked priestesses and all that good fun stuff. So we were going to those meetings, and we released an episode about it. I had been using a fake name, one of only 2 times I've used a fake name in any of our investigations, because usually we're just totally 100% ourselves just to see what happens. Anyway, so we then, after releasing that episode, we decided, let's go back and kind of take some more, learn some more, have some more experiences. And they had found out about the show. They'd listened to it. They hated us. And it was a really uncomfortable confrontation where they kicked us out, essentially.
Wow. Okay.
And we kind of kicked ourselves later, because their phrase is, do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. And later on, it's that spirit of the stare, the esprit d'escalier, where you think of the perfect response after you've left. Yeah. which is appropriate, because they were in a dark basement at the bottom of a staircase that we had to flee. But later on, we were thinking, I should have just said, but I was only doing what I wilt. Yeah, so that was awkward. But other times we were going to sign up for some Feldenkrais method sessions, and the woman didn't respond to my email. And then when Carrie called her, she said, I'm sorry, what's your name again? Carrie? What's your last name? Are you Carrie Poppy? She said, yes. I said, I'm sorry, I have no interest of working with you. Oh, that's we've had others who've looked us up like at various points during our investigation. The Scientology investigation, we thought that they would figure us out very quickly, but we were sort of aided by the fact that people working within Scientology are discouraged from Googling pretty much anything to do with Scientology. And so it took them a while to figure it out. And when they did, I was confronted. Again, they always pick me to confront. Well, not always, but I take it back. I just told a story about Carrie being confronted. But in this case, In this case, they waited for Carrie to leave a Sunday service that they went, and then a woman confronted me and pulled me aside and made up a little fake story about how she heard about the podcast. And I ended up getting kind of marched out by a bunch of Sea Org members. So
Okay.
yeah, we've had some awkward situations for sure.
So well, all right. So you gave some examples of when you got kind of kicked out or chased out, but if someone does recognize you, do you hide or do you come clean? What's your protocol?
Oh, I mean, we are ourselves. So,
Okay.
we would just react honestly. And depending on the situation, we might, if they're okay with us still being there, we'd want to still be there. But
Okay.
if they know who we are and feel that our presence is disrespectful, or they just don't want us or don't want us there observing, knowing that we're going to talk about it, then yeah, we'll leave. In fact, actually, one time we did a series on holotropic breath work. We went to a weekend seminar.
Yeah.
And that was really fun. It was a great experience. So we reported on that. And later on, the organizer of that event was hosting another event that was a binaural beats party, where you'd get together and, put on headphones and trip that way. And we signed up for it. And then we got an email back after our tickets were refunded saying, hey, I remember both of you. And actually, I listened to your podcast and I thought it was great. He was the one who had organized the holotropic breathwork seminar. He said, I think you're actually doing something really cool, but this event is being held at someone's private house. I don't feel comfortable kind of volunteering it for sort of your podcast investigation. So it was the most kind and respectful booting I've ever gotten. If you want to frame it and put it on the wall.
That's cool. That's really cool. So like we kind of jumped in right to your show. In case people don't know, I did mention it in the bio, but you do a show, you do this podcast that's been going, I think you're coming up on your 10th anniversary, right? You're coming up on 10 years.
In March,
Ross and Carrie.
Crazy.
How did it start? How did you meet Carrie?
Maybe I can kind of bridge both of those ends that we've discussed with a little bit of storytelling. So after I found the Skeptic Society initially, I was listening to a lot of podcasts, Skeptic's Guide to the Universe, Skeptoid, all of these things that have skept in the title. Here we are on the Skeptical Health Bar. But one was Point of Inquiry at the time, and that was CFI's podcast. And so I was listening to that regularly, really enjoying the interviews. And the host mentioned the CFI Los Angeles, or CFI West in Los Angeles. And I said, wait a second, they have one here? Oh my goodness, that's amazing. And somehow I just hadn't heard of it. So I looked it up and I went there. I think I can date it to like October 2006, because then I found out that they had lectures, they had a book club, they had the Independent Investigations group at the time. And I dove in because I had been trying to look for ways to get involved and to volunteer at the Skeptic Society. And they kind of had their thing worked out. They weren't really looking for anybody, didn't have any positions. But this new place had kind of a community, and you could hang out and meet people, make friends. And so I signed up for that, kind of all of it. I was going to all those lectures, as well as the Skeptic Society lectures. And so I would see Carrie there, and we'd notice each other because we were two of the very few young people. It was mostly cranky old white men at the time. And, I'm getting there, but, there weren't too many young people. And we'd also go to the book club together. And actually, I'm still... oh goodness, 14 years later, I'm still not only involved in the book club, but now I'm the leader of the book club. So we made friends that way. And what happened was, at the book club, I'm pretty sure it was, Carrie had recommended or had asked if anybody wanted to join her. She was going to go to this Kabbalah lecture at the Kabbalah Center, which is kind of a popularized version of, Jewish mysticism.
Right.
And it was going to be a lecture on, I can't remember which star sign it was, but it was like an astrological thing. And so I said, oh yeah, I totally want to go. That sounds amazing. And everybody else said, no, why would we do that? We don't believe that stuff. We're not crazy. And so Carrie and I went to this lecture, and then the next time we came back for the meeting, everybody just like the whole conversation turned to, what did you do there? How did it go? Like, what did they say? And so, oh, okay, well, they said this, and this. What did you do? And so we're describing all that, and we're thinking, well, why do they want to know this now when they weren't interested in going before? And we both had this kind of light bulb of, maybe we finally found something we can do to contribute to all of this by doing our own firsthand investigations. And that was our first episode. We went back to the Kabbalah Center for another lecture and reported on that for our first episode.
Oh, that's cool. That's really neat. So I go, oh, I'm hearing some echo. Oh, there it goes. It's gone. All right. So I went through, because I've been listening for years. And like, yeah, I'm a loyal fan. Love it. I love the show. And I started going through because I'm like, all right, so what kind of topics have you covered? And it was just crazy going back through the episodes. And I'll give everyone this is just a small sample of the topics that you guys have covered. Ear candling, energy healing, sensory deprivation. You've been exorcised, not in the like workout way, but in the demon way.
Right.
You've become exorcists. You've been overheated, and you've also taken ice baths. You've traveled with haunted dolls. You mentioned a little bit about that. You've investigated multiple psychics, which I'd really like to get into. You've gone into a haunted house. I think you stayed at a haunted house with a guy that claimed his house was haunted. You've gone on ghost hunts. I believe like one was the Queen Mary. You took okay. You've done UFO events where you were out in the desert with a whole bunch of UFO people. You've done flat Earth events, which is that's interesting too. And then even drink your own pee. I'm sorry. That was the weirdest thing that came up. We don't have to talk about that if you're uncomfortable with that.
No. That obviously I've talked about it for many hours.
I'm so curious about that, and I'm sure everyone else is curious now. So how did that happen?
Okay, so urine therapy. It's fun just to hear you name all these things, because I kind of listen to that and go, oh wow, that sounds like a fun show, because like there's so many investigations, I can't keep them all in my mind at once. And whenever somebody asks me, oh, what have you investigated? I can usually get out 4 or 5 before I sort of stop and think like, oh, what else? I know there's tons, but when I've given talks and I've just listed out all the investigations we've done, which are now dozens and probably over 100 at this point, it's crazy to think of all the things we've done. So urine therapy, what really started this was, both of us had received books on urine therapy. So we kind of had that on our radar.
Okay.
But, oh, hey, Drew, nice. Drew does very good work. You want to go to his, I think it's an Etsy shop, and buy some of his woodcut style artwork. Anyways, so we both had books, and we knew it was a movement that people believe that your own urine, can do all kinds of things to act as a medical cure, a panacea, make you look younger, heal all that ails you. It's the body's magical, elixir. So we kind of had it on our to-do list. We have this very long to-do list of just like hundreds of potential investigations. We'll never run out of material. The problem is not what do we do? It's what can we do first?
Right.
And so this was an opportunity to actually like read these books and follow their instructions. But the way we set this up was every year we do a big fund drive. We call it the Max Fund Drive because we're on the Maximum Fund Podcast Network. And so this is the one time of year that we try to pitch everyone to become financial contributors to the show to help us pay for advanced Academy of Deliverance courses and stuff like that. And so we set these goals for the number of new and subscribing, new and increasing memberships. And so that was a lofty goal that we put up there way high, where we didn't think we'd actually reach. We said, if we get to like 4,000 new subscribers, we will drink our own urine. And so we thought, haha, well, at least, we won't actually have to do this. But we got there and we did. So, yeah, I spent a month every morning. I would pee into a cup, my fresh morning pee, which is, that's the darkest pee of the day because it's, you've been holding on to it all night.
Yeah.
And I would drink it down. And then when I would, it's so disgusting. And like sometimes I'd try to cut it with grape juice or something else or even water. Nothing can make that a pleasant experience. And then like later pee during the day, I would store and I would age my pee so I could use it to soak my foot because I have this long-standing eczema that's related to another investigation. That's a different story. But
firewalking, right?
That's right. Yep.
Okay.
That's from firewalking. So anyways, I was drinking and soaking my foot in pee and sometimes rubbing it on my face. And it was disgusting. The whole thing was disgusting. But I tried to keep all of this secret from my wife because she knows I do all this crazy stuff, but she doesn't want it in her face all the time. So
that begs the question: if you're rubbing it on your face, how can you not keep it out of her face?
So I would be in the bathroom, and as I'm soaking my foot in some aged urine, I'm also rubbing it on my face to see if it'll help my skin. And I'm sitting there for 10 minutes, and then I take a shower.
Okay.
Yeah. Meanwhile, I had a middle school and high school buddy, one of those people that you didn't really know too well, but now they show up on your Facebook thread and they're afraid of 5G causing COVID. Anyways, he was a very vociferous advocate of urine therapy. And so he kept chiming in to give me additional pointers and advice as well. And hooked us up with an expert that we interviewed on the show, an expert on urine therapy.
Yes. Wow. That's a fascinating story. And I love it. I love when I have comments like this where somebody comes on to the show and they're like, did I go on a podcast about drinking pee?
Yeah.
Yes, Tim, you did.
Yeah. Sorry, Tim.
So I'm curious about, because I've heard the episode where you did the firewalking, and then I heard subsequent episodes where you complained about foot problems and the eczema. Like, was the eczema actually caused by walking on the coals?
So this has been a voyage of discovery. I think the best way to sum it up is that I was genetically predisposed to get eczema, but because my mom and my sister both have eczema in different areas, but it had never expressed itself until I walked on coals 7 times and baked my foot essentially. And the foot is just never, and this was more than 4, I guess. What year was that? I guess it would be almost 5 years ago. My foot has never fully gone back to normal, my right foot.
Wow.
And so after all the boils and skin burning and everything kind of worked itself out, my left foot went back to normal, got better. But the right foot had just been so irretrievably damaged that it started with the exorcism, eczema. I'm getting my investigations and ailments mixed up. So yeah, I've just had like flaky skin ever since then. And now I get regular emails from everybody with their favorite treatments for eczema. Thank you, everybody.
That's nice. I mean, and you try them all, right?
That's right. Yeah, I've tried many. And, I can now manage it. I know how to keep it kind of under control so it doesn't. At least I can run again now. For a long time, I couldn't even run. It was so bad.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that sucks. So out of all of this stuff, I mean, I have 3 basic questions that just fall into this whole umbrella of investigations that you do. So what's your favorite investigation? What's your worst investigation? And then maybe you just answered this, but what is your most painful or embarrassing investigation? So let's start with your favorite.
Okay. That's tough. There's a lot of there's reasons I love different investigations for different reasons. So maybe I can throw out a few quickly. I would say I'm really proud of our Scientology episodes, and I really love the human connection that we had with our Mormon episodes. And both of those are really memorable ones that I think just encapsulate a lot of what we're trying to do with the show and kind of the human impact that it can have. So those are both good ones to sort of point people to if they've never listened to the show before.
Okay.
And Scientology is what everyone asked for until we actually did Scientology. One that probably had the greatest impact on my life, it's going to sound really bizarre, but a speed reading course that we took at an airport, Hilton or Hyatt or something like that. Because I've always enjoyed reading, and I had already at that point started a reading log. Kind of when I was reading all of these skeptical books for the first time, I started keeping a record of the books I was reading. And if I was lucky on a good year, I could read 18 or 19 books. Wow. And we went to the speed reading course, and it definitely, that investigation cemented for me that you can't read a book like, as fast as you can flip it. You can't read like this. That's ridiculous. As Woody Allen said, I read War and Peace in 5 minutes. It's about Russia. But what I did get from the course was a lot of like little practical guides on how to sort of scan in advance and just sort of get your mind around what are the lengths of the chapters? How long does it take me to read a page? About how long am I going to be reading this book? Only read for 45 minutes. That's about as long as you can keep your attention. So set a timer for 45 minutes and then just focus only on the book and then go do something else. And then you kind of know how many installments it'll take you to read the book. Use your finger for tracking. There are just all of these little common sense things that I sort of took away and started using. And some of them I kept, some of them I didn't. And I don't read much faster now, but I read a lot more. And for the last few years, it's gone up every year, but now I average about a book a week, or like 52 books a year. Cool. So that also the corollary of that is that I realize that the more I read, it's a positive correlation. Like the more I read, the happier I am in life. And so it's just something I always need to make sure I prioritize, that I have enough time to read. So yeah, that was an awesome investigation for that.
That's cool. I'm constantly reading. I mean, I gave you the grand tour before the show started. Yeah. But I love to read, and to be honest, like most of the books I haven't read through. I am the one that like I get a book for reference and I read the relevant chapters, and I do scan a lot. And I developed that, I think, on my own, where I'll scan through a page looking for specific words. And that lets me go through books pretty quickly, but I don't absorb all the information. It's just what I need. But yeah. Right. And then I have books that I read just for pleasure, if that make me happy. I have I don't know if you ever read Dragonlance. It's fantasy. No, fantasy Dragonlance novels are like near and dear to my heart. Like whenever I reach a point in my life where I'm like, oh, everything's too much and I just need to escape, I pick up the first volume is Dragons of Autumn Twilight, and I just start reading it. And it's my centering. It brings me back to like, okay, I'm cool now. I'm good. I'm relaxed. I'm in my little fantasy world. I can come back out now and play with others. But so that's cool. Before you get to the next two like investigation types, I do have a question that came up. Actually, there's a question that came up from Ronnie. Do you regret doing the? I don't even know what that is.
Ayahuasca.
Oh my goodness, I love that. I love those. So there you go. Do you regret doing those?
You did very well there, Ronnie. There's just one extra A after the Y. Ayahuasca. Okay. Yeah.
So can you explain briefly what that was, and then what?
Yeah. Boy, we got a lot of emails after that with people spelling ayahuasca so many different ways, because it's just unspellable words. So ayahuasca is a potent hallucinogenic drug called an entheogen, because it gives you visions of religious significance. Another well-known drug in that category is like peyote, for example. And so there was a resort in Costa Rica called Rhythmia that actually invited us to come down to Costa Rica. All we had to do was pay for our travel to Costa Rica, and then they would put us up for a week, and that included all of these kind of spa-like services that they had, and the meals were included. So, you know, it was this multi-$1,000 package, essentially. They were offering us because they knew that we had a podcast and that it was, you know, well listened to enough that I guess it was worth their dollar to have us experience this. So we said, yeah, that sounds great, but you do realize this is an investigation show. We're just going to report on everything we see and give our honest opinions, as long as you're okay with that. And they said, oh yeah, absolutely. So we went down there, and part of this was 4 nights of ayahuasca ceremonies. And Carrie quickly found out, she thought she had quit her SSRI medications early enough, serotonin based drugs, and or at least drugs that interact with the serotonin receptors in the brain. Anyways, so their doctor advised against her actually taking ayahuasca. So it was just going to be me. And instead, they gave her a homeopathic preparation and said that it was as strong or stronger than the real stuff. So that became kind of a running joke. And we still have a bottle of this homeopathic ayahuasca. That's a whole different story. But anyways, so yeah, 4 nights in a row. I took this, and each ceremony was about 10 to 14 hours. This is like, it's a really long trip, and it has a long tail. And so the reason that Ronnie's asking if I regret doing it is because the first 3 nights, after that, I would have said, everybody needs to do this. You know, it's amazing. And the basic pathway of ayahuasca is you take it, and you, over about half an hour, it starts to work its way into your stomach, and then through your blood to your brain. And there's kind of 2 active ingredients, but one of the main features is that the active hallucinogen is DMT, but it kind of enters a different way through the gut. And the other vine that's in there is a substance that keeps it from being digested right away. So you need those in combination. Anyway, so it takes a while to work its way through your system. And so first you have these little geometric hallucinations, or you're floating through the ground or something like that. But then all of a sudden you drop off this cliff into the depths of despair. You feel utter aloneness or disgust or sadness. And you have people around you puking and crying and miserable for who knows how long, because you lose all sense of time. But it's awful. It's the worst depths you've ever experienced. But then you come out of this eventually, and you have all of these amazing connections, and you see figures talking to you, and you make all of these, you know, every axiom you've ever heard, all of a sudden just, it makes so much sense. And oh, wow, we all just need to love each other and stuff like that. And, you know, it's things you've heard, but all of a sudden they really mean something, like intensely. So I had 3 nights. Yeah, go ahead.
Let me interject. When you say you're seeing these things, like these figures talking to you, does that mean that you're actually seeing them like you see an actual person in front of you?
That's a very good question. So up to this point, I had never even done so much as marijuana. So this was my first time using drugs. But I can describe what I saw. I would say that's a good question. So no, you don't see it like an AR insert on top of reality, where it's like, oh, there's a figure in the room and I see them clear as day, as if they were standing here. As you start to have those hallucinations, they'll sort of like feel like an overlay on top of everything, but it sort of hurts to keep your eyes open. So eventually you just, or it's discombobulating. It makes you a little nauseous to keep your eyes open. So eventually you just close your eyes, and it'll start as just sort of like normally you would have light patterns. It's sort of an intense version of these light patterns. And then over time, it's that, but it feels like it's kind of directly inputting into your brain, as if something kind of short-circuited your optical processing and like directly plugged into it and said, I'm giving you a vision that way, instead of you actually seeing it with your eyes, if that makes any sense.
Not sure.
Nope.
It almost sounds like, it reminds me of like the Matrix films, where it's like,
yeah,
plug in and it's in their brain.
It's a little bit like that. I guess it's kind of almost dreamlike, but I would say like it really starts as sort of faint optical phenomena that just become more real as you're seeing them, thinking about them.
So you're not actually seeing someone in front of you like you're seeing me in front of you on the screen. You're
Correct.
You're kind of just someone's there. You
right, but
get that feeling.
But at least, yeah. So I would say it's more of like an oil slick version of everything. Like it's all kind of faint and repeated and abstract, but like later on you kind of remember it viscerally as if you were there.
Okay.
I'm trying to think of good ways to describe it. It's
I know I'm fascinated with the idea of hallucinations, and I've tried. I want to be vague here, but I've tried certain things to induce a hallucination.
Yeah.
After being told like what I'm going to take and the amount is well above and you should have hallucinations, I've never had one. So I don't know if it's something wrong with me
right.
or not, but I'm fascinated with the idea of hallucinations. That's why I'm so like when that episode came out, I wanted to talk to you like right then and there and be like, what did you experience? How did this happen? What did you do this? Did you do that? Like we could spend the entire night just me asking questions on this. I'm not going to, but
I think my fear is that like I'm going to describe it as being these very faint images that if you do have your eyes open, they kind of overlay so much that it makes you want to close your eyes just because it gets too confusing because there's multiple inputs.
Okay.
And so they do feel sort of like a black light or something that's like been carved out of a black surface. Did you ever do that thing where you would color with colored pencils and then you put black crayon on top of it and scrape away?
Right.
It's like that sort of thing. Everything's sort of defined by just these negative images. But like once you fixate on them, they just become real and sort of expand to fill up your senses. It's hard to describe, but essentially you're left with the impression of these very real experiences. And up to the third night, it was all kind of hunky-dory, except for everybody dreads that drop where you go into that miserableness and you puke and all of that stuff.
Like, did you puke?
I didn't, and I wanted to so badly. And I would be having these visions where I'd be on these endless like seas of grass and like they would be rolling and I would just be miserable. And I felt totally like I needed to throw up. I definitely felt sick, but I couldn't, but other people around me certainly were. Anyways, what's that?
Did they give you buckets?
Yeah, we all had our amigos. Blue buckets. Yeah, and it totally, like the place where we were at, there were, I think, 70 people there, and everybody has their own bed with a white sheet. And we've got, actually, this comforter looks a lot like the one they gave us. We've got a comforter, that was weird. And this blue bucket. And it looked like some kind of suicide cult because you just see like bodies in this huge room called the flight deck. And they've all got their own little mattress and they're laying down and tripping out. And it looks super creepy. And they've got artwork on the wall that actually kind of looks like what I'm trying to describe, which is, like black, but then you've got these weird figures on it that have like goats with multiple eyes and stuff like that. Anyway, so on the fourth night of this, I wasn't getting the hallucinations, but I was really kind of fighting it too. And so when they put out the call for another drink of the ayahuasca, I felt like I'd sort of cheated at that point, that I'd been fighting the whole experience. So I went back for another glass, and I even wrote down in my journal, because I'm trying to take notes during all of this, which is insane to read later, in the dark, me trying to write. And and actually I got to experience automatic writing. Like now when people talk about automatic writing, I know what that feels like, because my hand was just doing this thing, and I'd be like, whoa, there's words appearing on the page. This is crazy.
God,
and
that's awesome.
There's a reason we had like 13 episodes on this. There's so many aspects to talk about. But on that fourth night, I took the second glass, and I even wrote in my notes, I feel like I need to take another for the listeners, because this is the final night and I haven't really had the experience. All I was doing I was like twitching. And like my body would just kind of jerk uncontrollably, all of my limbs and extremities. And now at this point, I feel like the shaman should have seen that, me kind of just like occasionally spasming and not giving me that second glass, but they did. And I had the worst trip ever. I was miserable, physically uncomfortable. I felt like my organs were shutting down. And I ended up out on the lawn for what must have been like 6 hours, out of my mind, not able to control my speech, shirtless and walking around ranting, convinced that I was dying, that my body was dying. Wow. And so you asked kind of what was my most painful or uncomfortable experience. That was it, because I thought I was fighting for my life. And I was so scared and just thinking like, this wasn't supposed to happen. I wasn't supposed to die in Costa Rica. And who's going to tell my wife? And I was freaking out.
And Carrie was with you, right?
Not that time. So
my goodness.
Since she wasn't able to take ayahuasca, she had stuck with me the first night and taken her tincture. But then after that, she said, if it's all right with you, I'm just going to go read, and you can let me know how it went afterward. So that fourth night / morning, she wasn't there. But as I'm freaking out, there's a version of me running in the back of my mind, trying to, like, I felt truly split. Like there was still an observational me back there, just sort of observing everything that was happening. And I was kind of freaked out, like, oh, what's Carrie going to do when she finds out about this? Because I just assumed they're going to go get Carrie because this guy's dying. They didn't. So she didn't hear about it until I was through all of this. Wow. It was harrowing.
Wow. Yeah, I can see how that could be the most painful and worst experience of your life. Wow.
So I haven't answered the question, which was, do I regret doing it?
Do you? Yeah.
No, but if I had to do it again, I wouldn't have taken that final cup. I would have stopped.
So how many, you said final cup, how many cups did you take? And we're talking like a red Solo cup or a shot glass?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, it's this kind of earthen, jar, pottery kind of thing. And they would give you, it was like maybe a double shot would be the size of the actual drink that you would take.
Okay.
And so it wasn't very much, but very potent stuff. And they would give you that first one. And then maybe an hour and a half later, they would sort of put out second call, who wants to come back, and you get back in the line. And it looks like everything that you've ever been warned to, like if you ever went to church, they tell, what they tell you a Satanist gathering would look like. It has all the visuals. So you'd go get in this line essentially to have the shaman give you another cup of this stuff. So it varied. And I know I kept good records for the podcast, but I can't remember. Some nights I had one, some nights I had two. And they would even offer like a third cup. I don't think I ever went for 3. I can't remember for sure. But yeah, that night I should have stopped at 1.
Wow. That's like, I'm intrigued. I want to try it, but I'm worried that I might have the experience like that. And I could totally see, I'm a big baby, so I could see myself not only out on the lawn, probably naked, but also screaming, I'm gonna die. Everyone come see me.
Right. Yeah. And I was yelling, and it was a big to do. And I like I guess if anyone's really curious about it, listen to the whole podcast, because I tell about the whole aftermath of that. But my recommendation to people is by all means do it. Just know what you're getting into. Have a spotter, someone that you trust, who knows you, who's not under the influence, because we expected someone there to be kind of sober and nobody was. And and just don't go beyond your comfort zone. When you feel like you've had enough, you've probably had enough.
It really goes back to why I love your podcast. I do investigations on mostly like videos and claims of paranormal activity and stuff like that. But I love listening to your adventures, because as you mentioned in the beginning, like you give a detailed breakdown of stuff, and then Carrie has the more of the idea of what's entertaining to people. But you both comment on the same thing, and we get great information. So everyone is listening, definitely go check out the podcast, because I can say with good confidence that if there's a fringe topic that you're interested in or curious about, you guys have fucking did it. You had something to do with it, or you're planning on it. Because every time I look up, it's when I do research for certain articles, it's like, all right, let me do a search, and then there's two podcasts that I look at immediately. One is Skeptoid, because Brian Dunning, and he's been on the show before, and
fantastic resource.
Yeah, he's got 760 some episodes, so there's always something that he's done. And I look at Ono, Ross, and Kerry, because it's like, all right, have they done an investigation into this? Like, have they looked into it? This is good information. Let's listen to this.
Fantastic. So I feel that way about Brian's show as well, where especially like after we've done, because we don't want to form our minds too much. So if we happen to stumble into a topic that we don't know a lot about, we want to hear it from the believers first. But then we have to kind of quickly do some research, like, okay, well, they made a bunch of medical claims, and how much of that checks out, and what do we know more about the history of this that they aren't telling us? And so we'll try to bone up on that a bit. And Brian's is always a good one for me to listen to if he's covered that topic. I do that same sort of thing to just make sure, am I missing any big pieces? And sometimes he'll talk about something like, oh, I didn't know that so-and-so also wrote this, or what have you.
I do this. Yeah, I do the same thing, because he lists the references, and so it's great to see, like, okay, what book or podcast or other publication did he get it from? And I usually, when I listen to your podcast, especially you guys, because you guys are always buying books, and as you saw, like, I have a lot of books. So
we have the same problem you do. Yeah, there's a Japanese term, not Sudoku, but Tsundoku, for someone who collects more books than they could ever possibly read.
There you go. And it doesn't help when I listen to it and you're like, oh, this is a great book. I'm like, oh, I got my phone, boom, boom, Amazon ordered. Damn.
Yep.
Comes a book.
Yep. I have the same problem.
So I have another question. I don't know if you've done this, but Carol wants to know, how was the Costa Rica thing different from magic mushrooms?
Yeah, I know Carrie might have more to say about that. I haven't done anything else since. In fact, I promised my wife I would not. She was very upset. She was very upset after the Ayahuasca investigation. So anything else I would do, I'd have to get a clear dispensation. From my understanding, it's kind of similar. I think the magic mushrooms kind of put a sheen on everything. Everything becomes really glowy and sparkly, and you're filled with joy and love for all the little things, the details of nature, and everything becomes new and fresh and exciting for you. Sounds cool. I haven't done it though.
I can't say that. Never mind. I'll move on. Another question. Bob wants us to ask you, has there ever been a topic that you and Kerry were considering, but then decided it was a topic that went too far?
Yeah, we do have, as much as we put ourselves in really awful situations, we do have some common sense when it comes to not putting ourselves in extreme danger. There's been certain things like Nexium we found out about kind of right as it was starting to get media attention, when people became aware of the branding of women. If you haven't watched, there's like a documentary on HBO Max right now about it. It was Keith Raniere's cult. Anyways, so that's something we heard about. And we're like, well, no, they're branding women. We're not gonna get anywhere close to that. Carrie's next, Goop, Gwyneth Paltrow's whole thing. Like, they have this service that they promote that's vaginal steaming, where they blow heated air up your private parts. And so I was telling Carrie, like, well, I'd be willing to do the A steam. You can guess what the A stands for. And she's like, no, not the same, not doing it. I'm like, all right, we're done with that one. So I'm trying to think of other topics, but yeah, we've definitely looked at things and kind of said, nah, let's not.
Yeah. Well, that's good. I mean, again, I like what you guys do, but yeah, sometimes it goes too far, and you wouldn't want to put yourselves in danger. If you see it coming, you can use
some basic sense of self-preservation.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, especially with the experience you guys have after doing this for almost 10 years, you have some kind of sense like, I think if we do this, we might be over our heads here. We might be too far and get in trouble here.
Yeah, but we've done things like get in an unmarked van and get driven out 40 minutes into canyon country from Hollywood Boulevard and let's see, it was Hollywood and Highland. We got in a van where they frisked us for needles and they took us out to the Tony Alamo Ministries compound. We already knew they were a cult with threats of violence and beating people. And there are only transportation out to their compound in this van. And when we get there, they make Carrie change her short skirt. It's too short for their comfort to a pair of pants they've got in the back for her. And oh man, yeah, that was a really uncomfortable one because we thought if they find out about us, we're screwed.
Yeah.
And as we're driving out there, we're watching the bars disappear on our phones. Like, this is the start of every horror film. What are we doing? So, we still find ourselves in ridiculous situations.
So going off of that kind of questioning, have you guys ever been sued or threatened to be sued?
Yes. Yes, many times. Yeah, unfortunately. So I think the first people who threatened to sue us were the Raelians. That's a UFO cult.
Yeah.
Let's see. Yeah, I'll use the term cult. I try to use that term advisedly. But yeah, after we reported on them, they sent us a cease and desist from their lawyer and made demands of how we needed to remove all the episodes and issue a correction and stuff like that. So we do have a lawyer who Matthew Strugar, who's fantastic, and he responded to that one, and to him that one was so laughable. He kind of played with them and some of the logical mistakes in the lawyer's cease and desist letter. So we shared that on the podcast. The Rhythmia, the Costa Rica ayahuasca resort, they sued us both in Costa Rica and LA. And like the guy came to my work and everything, and I had to come out so he could serve me papers. And they ended up, we filed an anti-SLAPP lawsuit. Matthew and Carrie did a ton of work on that. And they ended up having to pay our lawyer $20,000.
What?
Yeah.
So, wait, they're the ones that invited you down.
Yep.
Knew you were totally clean with them, totally upfront. They invited you down still. And then they still sued you.
They sued us because they didn't like the coverage. Oh, it's such a crazy story, of course, which we tell in the longest series that we've done to date. So yeah, we unpacked all of that. But essentially, right, they wanted to sue us because we wouldn't retract this. And like they didn't want us to release the episode that we had with the founder. We had an interview with the founder and with their chief medical officer, and they tried to block all of that and talk us out of it. And so they waited until after we'd released all the episodes. Then they sued us to remove it all. And we didn't back down. Then they're sending us letters asking us to send them the contract that we signed. And we're like, well, A, we didn't sign a contract, but B, you should have it. We're not going to send it to you even if we did. And they're trying to sue us for breach of contract because they thought that somehow magically they'd gotten us to agree to only cover them positively. Nope, that was never part of it.
Wow. Holy shit.
We've had a lot of threats of lawsuits, but thankfully it's never gone the other side's way.
That's good. I've only been threatened. And it's usually, I mean, some of the stuff that I do, I mean, I obviously I name names, like you guys do. I tell it all. I don't bullshit people, but yeah, I've gotten the threats, and then my first line of defense is going to my editor and saying, hey,
good,
look at this. And usually, and my editor is Ben Radford. So he usually sends it back and goes, ha 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 ha, don't worry about it. It's okay.
It's good to have those kind of Ben Radfords in your life, or for me, Matthew Strugars, because when you get something like that, it's scary, you kind of have this panic, like, oh shit, legal action. That's not something I'm used to dealing with. And it's helpful to have that, voice of experience who can say, oh, this is ridiculous.
Yeah. It's always nice. So another question from Bob. Has there ever been a topic that you covered that your day job called you into the office for?
That's a good question, because I do work for Disney, and I try to keep the two separate. There's certainly a lot of people at work who listen to the podcast, and we talk about it. And everybody knows that Ross may be doing weird things, like if Ross is walking around without shoes or something, like nobody asks too many questions. They're like, he's doing something for the podcast. But no, the closest I've ever had was, somebody kind of sat me down just to make sure I sort of understood the implications and didn't do too much to sort of tie my Disney identity to my podcast identity, that just to make it clear that I do not represent the Disney company or speak on their behalf or anything like that. But yeah, it's never really become an issue.
That's good. That's definitely good.
They're very supportive, and they had me do a carve out. So that's something that you can do with a company, just to sort of separate it as a project that you do on your own time.
Okay.
That doesn't have any kind of impact on your ability to perform your day job. And as long as you can do that, then it's all your own property and your responsibility.
That's good. That's good. I like that. Question from Allison. If the world ever becomes safe for live shows again, will you and Carrie do more? I've been saving my t-shirt from Carrie's Etsy until I can meet you guys.
Oh, nice. Yeah, gladly. We would love to do more live shows. Yes. There was something that we said at the show we did. I think it was January in San Francisco of this year. That's so crazy. It's still 2020.
I know.
And we said something that someone thought it made it sound like we already knew that we weren't going to be able to do any more live shows, and thought like, did you know something that we didn't? And no, nothing like that. So yeah, gladly, we're looking forward to the day we can do live shows again.
Me too. You guys came out, was it New Jersey or New York?
New York, Brooklyn.
Yeah. You came very close, and my wife and I really want to go because my wife is also a huge fan, and we really want to go, but we already had plans that weekend. It was like, oh shit, what can we do? Can we bump them? And it was like, I think it was a family thing, so I couldn't really bump them.
Oh yeah.
But I mean, I was all for it. It was her. I'm
Nice.
totally blaming her. Who probably will come up here and yell at me any minute.
It's a very different experience, because normally we sit down and we kind of stumble through things. We don't have a script. It really is just us having a conversation and sort of encountering things as we come along. So I try to like jam my head as full of stuff beforehand so I can be ready to go. But then there's a lot of editing on the post side, trying to get it down to something listenable. So on a live show, we have to be all the more prepared to kind of know. At least Carrie and I will sit and look at an outline and say, okay, we're going to talk about this and then this and then this and then this, because we can't just go for 2.5 hours and then edit it down.
See, my wife loves your show.
Thank you, Donna.
and I get it too. I mean, I've done both live shows and I do videos on the side, and when I do scripted stuff, that usually takes so long, and I usually screw up. It's weird. If I do a live show, like when I do this kind of show, I'm on my game most of the time, mostly because I'm drunk. But if I do a video where there's no one watching me, for some reason I cannot.
And you're all over the place. I'm totally with you. The same way, like it focuses you into this laser-like focus when there's an audience there watching you.
Right. And I don't know why. It's weird. It usually takes me an entire day to put out one video that's like a half hour. But
man, and I love doing something like this where like I know there's nothing I can do later to edit this, or like there's nothing I'm going to have to do. So I feel like completely free. I don't have to worry about how I'm going to make this into a quality product afterwards. So thank you.
And it's awesome because, like, I mean, we talked before the show, like in the week coming up to this, and you were asking about like any prep work, and I do the same thing. Whenever I'm asked to do a show, I'm like, all right, is there specific things you want to talk about? So because I've done a bunch of articles. You've done a ton of shows where it's like, if you're going to ask me about a specific show, I need to go back and look.
Yeah, right.
I did.
Yeah.
You know, but this was like, all right, I have a bunch of questions here that are standard kind of things, but I do rely on the audience because it's a Q&A show, and I love this. I love the spontaneity. Like, I never know what they're going to ask me.
Yeah,
and I think that's fun.
That is fun.
What do we got? Oh, we got let's see. I'm just going to jump into another question here from Bob. Yeah. Bob is awesome. I love Bob. He comes in, he watches every show, and he's always good with questions.
Hey, Bob.
He asks, what is the typical turnaround for you from start of research to releasing the podcast on that topic? I know each topic is different and requires different amounts of research.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good question. And one well, partly we're still figuring out all the time. And also, I think we keep sort of a balance of a few different things with the show. So we try to have a balance of one-off investigations that are just a single episode about one topic, and the longer investigations like our Exorcism series we're doing right now, or Scientology or Ayahuasca, that are longer multi-part things. We try to have a variety of different types of topics. Like, we don't want it to be all psychics, but we do want to talk about psychics, you know, but then you've got to mix in actually, one thing we've done very little of is cryptozoology. I would love to have more of that. Yes. But we try to, like, topic wise, we want to make sure that we're varying it so that we're, you know, maybe looking at alternative medicine, and then we're looking at spirituality, and then we're looking at religion, and kind of keep that moving. And then another one that we look at is sort of the just the length of investigation. So we want to make sure that we have a few things that we could do quickly that are just sort of fun, like, hey, we're playing around with an Ouija board or an e-meter and we're talking about it, or we're doing an interview. And then those longer things, you know, some are just like a one-day conference, and maybe we talk about it for 1 or 2 episodes. Or we have things that we know are sort of slow burning in the background, like this exorcism thing we've been doing since 2012. We want to make sure we're also working on those, so we have them kind of getting ready for when we're ready to release them. So at any given moment, I would say Carrie and I are kind of actively working on 3 or 4 investigations, and maybe have another 3 or 4 that are sort of in various stages of percolation.
That's cool.
And sometimes it comes down to, like, oh, shoot, we've got to release an episode this Sunday. Which one should we report on? Is that ready? No, I want more time on that. I'm still reading that book. You know what? Let's just go to a reflexology person and have them read our feet, and we'll talk about that instead. Okay.
So you mentioned you want to do more crypto stuff, cryptids and stuff. Have you ever done a Bigfoot episode?
Only a half episode on Bigfoot. Carrie went to, why do I always struggle coming up with the name of Sedona? She went to Sedona, and I went to, up here in Santa Cruz, I'm up visiting family. I went to the Bigfoot Discovery Museum in the Santa Cruz Mountains, and talked about that. But yeah, we've never actually gone out with a group to do, you know, a search or anything like that. And I would love to.
There you go. So if any Bigfoot hunters are listening, contact Ross and Carrie. Just there you go. Set it up and go out, and call me too, because I want to come out. I have been on a couple Bigfoot adventures. Awesome. I've gone out with them, and it's interesting.
Yeah.
To say the least. Yeah.
I'm hoping at some point we can hunt the Mongolian death worm.
Oh, man. I want to still go for the Jersey Devil. Because
I'm wearing a shirt right now that has, like, different nods to Mothman and various other cryptids, the Chupacabra, but it's also a glow in the dark shirt, which is
that's cool. Very cool. So I guess this is like a follow-up question to your work one. Carol asked, have any of your adventures informed your work at Disney? So I guess any of the people that got pissed off, have they actually called your work?
Oh, well, actually, I kind of read that question in a slightly different way, where I would say yes, like, the investigations in weird and unexpected ways have been boons or helps to my work at Disney. To answer quickly your question, Kenny, no. The worst thing that ever happened was someone went in and edited our Wikipedia page to say that I'd been fired from Disney for being an incompetent worker or something like that. And it was
Susan and her team were right on that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. That disappeared very quickly. But yeah, it was someone on the East Coast. I remember looking up their IP and wondering, who was motivated? Because I don't like making enemies in real life at all. And I like to think I'm a very friendly person. So it's weird that I have enemies, but it's like, who would have done that? Melissa Scott's church, maybe. They're really vindictive. But no, I soldier on there at Disney, and I love the work that I do. It's so creative. But definitely, like, all I do with audio editing and just, learning software and equipment, that plays into the work that I do all the time. But also even subject wise, like even the analogies I'll come up with to explain things at work will involve certain things I've interacted with. Or like, I remember one time we were working on a logo for something we were pitching. And I pointed out in the meeting, well, with those green stacked layers that make the pyramid, it looks like the Scientology logo, or not the Scientology, but the Dianetics logo. And so they looked that up and they went, oh shit. they changed the design because they didn't want to look like that. Or other things that I've just kind of noticed and pointed out because I have experience with a lot of different religions and that kind of stuff. So okay. I think generally it's always helpful to have have a lot of irons in the fire, because if you're studying a lot of different random, interesting things, it's going to inform everything else you do in some really fun and unexpected ways.
Awesome. That's great. Yeah. I love that. I mean, every time I investigate something, I'm sure you experience this. I mean, I never know where I'm going to go. Once I start looking into something, I go down so many different paths and start learning about so many different things, or people in history or methodology and beliefs. And I'm like, this is amazing. And I get totally sucked in right down the rabbit hole. I love it.
For information junkies like us, I think we've fallen into exactly the right thing, because now we sort of have an excuse to be spending all this time that it takes us to do this reading and researching, because these are all things I would want to do anyway. But now, because I have a show to support that now, is also financially supporting us as well, now I have a really good excuse to do it, and I don't have to make the case to my wife.
How does your wife, I don't know exactly how to say it, but accept or put up with all of this?
Yeah. Well, I mentioned, like, she got really pissed off after the ayahuasca thing. There's been certain other investigations that she hasn't been thrilled about. She got really mad after the blowfish investigation, where we tried the hangover medication. I think over time, she's gotten more kind of comfortable with what it is we do. And usually she wants to just, make sure that she's not a part of it and that she doesn't have crazy people coming after her.
Okay.
But some of them she actually gets pretty excited about. In fact, she even told me not too long ago that the Bob Larson investigation is her favorite that we've done. And she loves hearing all the stuff that we've learned about him.
That's cool. I actually love that series so far, and I was glad you guys did that, because it's always been something I wanted to look into, but there was never like a specific aspect for me to dig into. And I know, like, he had I think it was the 3 girls. I think only 2 of them were his daughters, or 1.
Yeah, it's kind of like, like a band, where some get ejected and others come in.
Right.
But yeah, at least when we encountered them, only 1 was his daughter and 2 were sisters from another mother.
Yeah. That kind of stuff always fascinated me, and I'd really like to dig in, but I just didn't have enough time to donate or to spend on it. That's really in depth. And like you said, that's been 2012 that you've been working on that. So, pretty long time.
Yeah, that's all my fault too, dragging my feet on that, because it's such a big topic and I always want to do more and I want to do it right. And so actually, again, we made that part of our fundraising goals, is that we would finally release this episode. So that forced me to dive in and finish a ton of stuff that I'd been putting off with that. And now, like, I'm writing my review of Jezebel. That's one of his books right now.
There you go.
We're defeating your number one spiritual enemy. And so now, we're just up to our gills in Bob Larson stuff.
Right. I wanted to share a story, a personal story, because you mentioned about the P thing and setting a goal that you thought would never be attained. I did that too recently. A friend of mine actually offered to do the what is it? Pika? Let me see. It's here. This one chip challenge that was the hottest pepper there is.
Okay, yes.
And he offered to do it for charity. So we actually put out a week before, we did a show, and he was going to eat this chip that was really supposed to be like hot and painful and all kinds of warnings on this.
Yeah.
And, we were going to donate money to cancer research. So we started doing it, and we did I think we did a preview a few days before and said, we're going to do this. We want to reach this amount. If we reach this amount, he's going to do it and this and that. And then somebody commented in the chat room, like, we want you to do it, talking to me.
Oh.
I don't do spicy stuff at all. I'm a total wuss with it.
I'm a wuss too.
But I was intoxicated because this is a bar. I was like, sure, if we hit $500 donation to the Cancer Research Institute, I'll do it. And I'm confident. I'm totally confident. We're not gonna get that. Well, I don't have enough followers. Nope. The day of, someone made a $500 donation.
Oh, wow.
And I was stuck. I was like, fuck.
Yeah, what's the opposite of Saved by the Bell? Like
sent to hell by the bell.
Oh man, you survived. You're here.
It was bad. I don't want to ever do it again, but that was my one time when it really backfired on me. So
yeah,
but it was fun. It was good for a good cause. So
yeah, you make a promise, got to stick to it.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, fuck. I was screaming and yelling and everything beforehand. But I was like, I made the promise. I got to do it. I have to do it. So, all right. Are you still good on time? We got a couple more questions.
Absolutely.
Awesome. So this is cool. This is a new person. Friendly Neighborhood Lesbians. Awesome. Their question is, which investigation do you most wish you had been able to do a deeper dive on? Was the inability to do deeper dive due to resources, safety, being found out, kicked out?
That's a good question. I mean, generally, yes. I would say almost every topic I always kind of leave with but I just wanted a little more time. Again, that kind of push and pull where I'm always trying to incorporate as much as possible. And it's tricky too, because all of our investigations have sort of a tail with them where we're still on the mailing list and we still know people that we met on these investigations. And now we're still kind of tapped into that world. So, it's hard to sort of cut ties and say, okay, I'm done with this topic. So we always still have sort of this chatter in the background where we're following up on all these previous topics. And occasionally we'll release an updates and corrections episode where we'll sort of talk about things that have happened, additional developments, new things that we've learned. But the first thought that came to mind with that question was Scientology, because I was the day that I was kicked out, I was also there talking about how to sign up for the purification rundown. And it was a $2,500 course that I would have signed up for. It's this Scientology detox. And you go in there every morning, you sweat in the sauna, you ride on the bike, you run, all of that stuff. And of course, learn some more L. Ron Hubbard tech. So I was ready to plunk down $2,500 to do this. And that's when they finally figured out who we were and kicked us out. So yeah, we were just going to keep going as long as we could with Scientology until something made us stop. Right. And that was it. I say that, and yet they kept sending me emails because Scientology, like if you get on their mailing list, Lord help you getting off of it. And so they would still send me emails and physical mail And so they sent me these emails inviting me to an L. Ron Hubbard birthday celebration. So I signed for it and I went. But then I was live, like posting some photos from the audience, and I could see the security guard walking in the dark, trying to triangulate where I would have taken the picture from. And he located me, and he marched me out of there and followed me until I like left the premises. So eventually, we kept kind of testing the perimeter fence, and eventually we learned that we'd been put in their what is it called? A rogues gallery, a collection of photos and identities that they teach all of their security guards so that they know to identify us and turn us away. Anyway, so yeah, I would have gone on with that as long as I could have.
Didn't you post a video at one point? Not that I'm trying to be a stalker or anything, but didn't you post a video where you were on the sidewalk in front of the building and the security guard came out and told you couldn't be there filming or something?
Yes. Oh, yeah. That was the Melissa Scott Church. Pastor Melissa Scott Faith Center is the name of the church. It's in Glendale.
All right.
And she was the widow of Gene Scott. And for anyone who lived in the LA area, they remember seeing him on TV. He was a real character. This minister, really quirky figure. Could talk about him for a long time. But he married this woman who had been a Penthouse pet.
Ooh.
And now claims to be a biblical scholar, you know, of course, trained by him, not by any actual Bible school. And she claims to speak more than 26 languages. So I assume 27. And she runs this very creepy cult-like organization where she enforces, oh goodness, if you want to attend the service, you have to apply in advance. They have to issue you a ticket. And so we had gone in and we managed to get in for, I guess, just one service. And by the time that we came back, they had looked us up. They wouldn't let us in. And they had security guards there waiting for us. And they turned us away. Super awkward. Like a dozen men in suits and earpieces. It was crazy.
All right. So another question from Ronnie. Has doing these investigations affected your general view of humanity, either positively or negatively, and how?
That's an interesting question.
Like that.
Yeah. I would say on the whole, hasn't changed at all. I realize at the same time, I realize these are fringe groups. At the same time, we've been to so many, and each of them has their own following, that now when I'm out in public, I do kind of look around and think like, okay, well, some of you have to belong to some weird group. And I'm almost surprised that I don't run into more people that I've just met by attending one of these things. You know, like when I'm out and about, I rarely worry that I'm going to run into someone from the Seventh-day Adventist series that we spent weeks at, something like that. But I think the only ones that have caused me a little bit to lose my faith in humanity a bit is the things that are more related to QAnon, flat Earth, 5G conspiracy, 9/11 truthers. It's sort of a family of beliefs that are all tied around this deep mistrust of the government, of experts, of scientists, and the sort of belief that there's this collusion to deceive and inveigle and obfuscate. And it's just like encountering that belief, there's no inroads conversationally to disabuse someone of those beliefs. There's no way to even like properly question them, because just the mere fact of holding a different position or questioning those ideas makes you a sudden enemy and part of this really dark and evil, sinister force. I don't know what to do with that yet. And this QAnon stuff is really, really making me uncomfortable.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're getting to the end of the show. I don't want to keep you too much because it is Christmas Day. You are with family. So I guess to wrap it up, first and foremost, thank you so much for coming on, for taking time out of your family time and to spend with me. And
thank you. And I cleared it with my wife in advance, so you saw that. So we're totally good. But no, this is super fun. I love talking to you, and this is an excellent excuse to do it.
I had the same thing, because as soon as I sent you the message And you're like, yeah, sure. I'd love to do that. And then I told my wife and she's like, dude, it's Christmas Day. I was like, oh, well, I mean, I don't know. He's a skeptic.
Yeah, that's right. I'm still skeptical ones. Well, I do celebrate Christmas, but yeah,
so
not in it.
Yeah, so do we. I mean, we do the whole Christmas and presents in the morning. And this year was more like we got up kind of late this morning, but still did the whole presents thing. So
yeah,
still on board with that kind of stuff. I guess I want to close out. Oh wait, let me see. One more question from the viewers. Allison asks, dream guest to interview for a show or to bring along on an investigation.
Oh, Kenny Biddle.
Oh, I am totally clipping that out for an advertisement.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that actually, there's people we've talked to that said they would be interested in being on the podcast that we haven't had yet, that we just need to follow up with. So I don't know how quickly I could even figure out what's wrong with us that we haven't yet, but people like Mary Roach, the author, she's fantastic, and she expressed interest in being on the show. So just got to make it happen sometime. Susan Blackmore, she's another one who said like, yeah, sure, I'll be on your show. Elizabeth Loftus, goodness, Sanal Edamaruku. I reached out to him. He's like, yeah, I'll be on your show, and I haven't followed up yet. So there's some really cool people out there that we'd love to talk to. And we always just try to, as much as possible, get the interviews to line up with our current topic.
Right.
And have them be sort of a logical extension of that. So yeah, a lot of people we're hoping to talk to. It's pretty rare that we bring people along for investigations, just because it's such hard work to coordinate Carrie's and my schedule alone, let alone involve a third party and then try to make sure that they're sort of down to do sort of the exact same thing that we're doing with the investigation, which is, we don't cause trouble. We're not there to talk anyone out of their beliefs. We're purely in observation mode and participating. And a lot of people are down with that, but it's just, it's kind of managing another person in the mix is sort of complicated. So we get a lot of people who offer like, oh, anytime you're in, Houston, let us know. I'll come on the investigation with you. You're like, that's great. But, it's just, it's just an extra layer of planning and preparation that we can barely pull it together as it is.
Right. I feel the same way. I mean, most of the investigations that I do is and despite what my wife is saying right here, I am not a troublemaker, damn it. Yeah, I totally am. But I go back and forth. I do know when I want to be there for observational purposes only, and I just stand in the corner. I literally stand in the corner and just watch and take notes because I want to observe. I want to collect that data. Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to mention another book here right now, and I'm sorry to do this. But have you ever heard of or read When Prophecy Fails? It's a classic work by Leon Festinger, the guy who came up with the cognitive dissonance theory. Actually, he released that the year after this book came out in 1956. I just read this recently, When Prophecy Fails. I've been meaning to read it for a long time. It's kind of a clinical treatment, but I'm reminded of this right now because it pertains to us as investigators. It started in Minnesota. There was a woman who was getting messages from the Ascended Masters, from the aliens. She was sharing these messages, and there was going to be this cataclysmic, it was going to be on December 21st of that year, the 1954, that one of the Great Lakes was going to send out this tidal wave flood and destroy the local region, which was to be followed by other natural disasters. Anyways, there was a local university there in Minnesota, and they were doing research on cognitive dissonance and how believers respond and react when their prophecies don't go as they were supposed to. And they had historical examples, but all of a sudden they found out there was this local woman, and essentially she'd made an actual prediction with a date, and they wanted to see what would happen when her prophecy failed, as one would assume it would. And so they tapped investigators to go observe and to take part in these 2 different cities where these meetings were happening, and they got 3 different observers. And so they wanted to make sure that at least one of them was present for every meeting. Sometimes these meetings would go on like 12 plus hours, so they'd have to sleep over. And as much as possible, they were trying not to get pulled into this because they didn't want to affect the direction of the group and the prophecies and all of that stuff. But then like the lady started asking one of them to lead prayers, and it was getting awkward. And I was cracking up at this because I thought, this is what Carrie and I do. This is always our struggle, is to remain a little removed and a little objective, and then have people trying to pull you into this more than you were anticipating. So you reminded me of that.
That's because I do get that. If I do sign up for an event, especially if it's a local event, I can guarantee that most of them, within 5 minutes of me signing up, I get an email like, "What are you doing? Why are you coming to my event?"
Interesting.
Which is, it's always fun because I'm always like, "Hey, I'm just coming to observe." And and my philosophy is basically, if I sign up for an event like that, that's what I do. I sit there, I'll observe. I might ask questions, but as an outsider, like, "Oh, what's that device do? Oh, really? Oh, okay, cool. What's that button do?" That's about it. There's been plenty of times when like the organizers will get a question from an attendee and they're like, "Well, we're not really sure, but we do know somebody that can answer your question." And they kind of look at me and I'm like, nope. I'm here to observe. No, I told you that.
I recuse myself.
Yes, I'm not interfering.
Right. Yeah, that's the prime directive, right?
Yeah, the prime directive. I'm not interfering with the indigenous life forms.
As a member of the Starship Enterprise, I am not allowed to answer that question.
But there will be
time
how
your phaser works.
If someone says something that's just so out there and they're saying it with like an authoritative kind of tone, and it does get to me, and I'm like, "Oh, motherfucker, okay, here we go I'm gonna say something," and then we get into it. But otherwise, I try to just observe, and
there's a time and place for everything.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not there to mess it up or spoil, because most of the time it's pay to play, so other people are paying there for entertainment. And
yes,
I don't want to be that guy that causes a ruckus and screws it up and makes it horrible.
Which is a good point that I was thinking of earlier when you were talking about the kind of issue of giving money to these people. Oftentimes, that is your ticket in, because you're paying for this. They can kind of rationally assume that no one's going to pay $80 to do something that they don't believe in. Right. So that's usually, Carrie and I don't get asked too many probing questions because we've paid to be in the room where we are. So people just assume you're like-minded, because why else would you fork over a couple $100?
Yeah. I mean, if I buy a piece of ghost hunting equipment that's like $250, yeah, they don't second guess. It's like, all right, someone's putting out that money. They obviously think it works. And
right. Yeah. What idiot would buy it if they
didn't? Right here, baby.
Idiot.
Oh man. All right. So I'm going to wrap it up. I'm going to let you go. But everyone that's watching, whether you're watching live now or if you're watching the replay, please go check out Ono, Ross, and Carrie, the podcast. You can find it on all the podcast outlets everywhere. Great show. You have an incredible backlog of episodes. So anything, I mean, pretty much anything that's fringe, you probably have done it, and you can not only learn about this topic or whatever topic it is, you can hear experiences from people that were actually there, which I think is gold. I mean, that's just the best. And you can hear Ross's very detailed and nice, polite version, and you can hear Carrie's straightforward, "This fucking sucked" kind of. I love her attitude. My wife loves her. Loves her. When she goes off sometimes, my wife is cracking up where she can't breathe. She's laughing so hard.
Carrie is brilliant and just a hilarious person.
So any as we close out, any parting words of wisdom for anyone that's out there that might want to check out something like almost the way you do, not entirely.
Yeah.
Words of wisdom.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me on the show. This was super fun. Really enjoyed it, and great talking to someone who's like-minded. And it's a weird niche that we've found. So it's good to find someone else who does this also with so much kindness and good humor. I would say it's kind of we say we show up so you don't have to, but we always add, when pressed, but you can. And I think, like, if you have someone in your life who believes these things, believes something kind of wild that you might want to call crazy or dismiss, I think it can be a really big show of care and concern. You care for that person if you do that step of investigating it and, attend their landmark forum meeting, or go to their church, or, whatever it is, and just treat it in a way that it's not threatening, but it's interesting. Baruch Spinoza has a quote that's something like, I seek not to bewail or bemoan what people do, but to understand it. That's a paraphrase, but I think if you do that for someone, they'll at least look to you and say, oh, wow, that person cared enough to go with me or to try this out. And then they'll be a little more open to hearing your thoughts on maybe what didn't resonate with you. So something to consider.
Awesome. That's great. I love that. I can't add to it. That was good. Great. All right. So do me a favor, hang out for a minute or two while I close out the rest of the show. And I'll come right back to you. But I'm going to close out the show. I'm going to put you in the background and then get done. Say bye to everybody. Say bye to Ross.
Bye, everybody. Thank you so much. Love the questions.
Awesome. All right. So that brings us to the end. And I have a few things that I want to do. Oh, wait, you know what? Ross, I'm going to bring you back on for a second. Hold on a second. Bring it back on, because I didn't do this. I had a remote viewing challenge box. That I don't know if I didn't mention it to you. Everything falls. Okay. So I do this remote viewing challenge once in a while when I've been trying to get back into it, where I put an object in this box. And basically I give it about a week for people to make guesses. And I offer a prize. And the prize this week was I was going to give them my Raggedy Ann doll.
Yeah.
And the Baby Yoda bank that I have here. Grogu.
Ooh.
If they guessed it right. So I actually have to open it and show everyone, because I did go through all the comments and I lock it. That's the big thing. Like, I lock it when I put it in there and nobody else knows. Not even my wife knows what's in here.
I'm sensing it's something to do with a bird. I'm seeing a bird.
You're seeing a bird?
Yep.
Okay. All right. That's your guess.
That was Uri Geller's guess when Chris Angel pulled that on him once on a show that I was in the audience for. I love that. In fact, with the CFIIG, we once spent an afternoon making kits, little paranormal testing kits that I would keep in my wallet that has an image and a written word. And then that was wrapped in tinfoil, and that was put inside a little coin envelope. And I would carry it with me everywhere, so that if anybody said they could either read minds or remote view, I would just say, okay, tell me what's in here.
That's awesome. I do the same. I have, there's 3 envelopes that I have that I carry around with me. They're always in my backpack. And I carry it for that reason, that if I come across someone that claims they can read those messages, I'm like, all right,
I've got a test.
So I'm going to open it up. You're going to see exactly what's in here. And wait, there it is. I'll take it out for you. So it is a USB drive.
Oh, okay. Filled with birds.
Yes. So I did go through. I after the last show, when I announced it, I did put up a picture of it and asked for people to make guesses. No one guessed it right. So again, and I've been doing this for a couple of years now, no one has won.
Okay, I like it.
I keep waiting. Like, I really want someone to win.
Right. Yeah. I mean, those odds aren't impossible.
But I actually talked to a bunch of people that claim to be remote viewers. And
Yeah.
I do have a target ID on the back because I was told you have to have alphanumeric.
PK421. Do you copy? That's funny. Yeah, we have, we've had multiple people apply, but we have one right now applying for the CFIIG $250,000 challenge, trying to set up a remote viewing protocol. So we'll see how that goes.
And that's the cool. I mean, we didn't even get into that. So we're going to have to do this again.
And we can talk psychics next time.
Yes, we need to talk psychics. We need to talk about testing. I had IIG on my notes, but there's so much that we can go into. So I definitely, if you're up for it, I want to have you on again.
Oh yeah, totally.
Awesome. All right. So I'm going to throw you back in the background, and then I'm really going to close the show this time. All right. So with that, Friday night with me and Ross, but your Christmas night, because learning never stops, and it's great that you guys can hang out. Plus, with the current times, with the pandemic and all that shit, people are still trapped at home and you can't travel. So hopefully everyone that's watching, you had a good time, and this offered you some entertainment for tonight, and you learned something. Or maybe you found a new podcast to listen to, because it's a great podcast. And definitely for the book tonight, Bob Ledzinski was the first one that got it on both accounts. So he wins both books, which is awesome. So Bob, you're going to get both copies of these. So hopefully you have kids that will benefit from these books. So there you go. And then to wrap it out, what else do I have? I have one event that's coming up. It is January 7th. I'll be speaking for the Sydney Skeptics. So I'm looking forward to that with Richard Saunders. And I'm going to be talking to them. I think for us in the United States, at least Eastern time, I think that's somewhere between like 3 a.m. or 4 a.m., something that I'll be up doing a lecture. So that should be fun. Besides that, I have nothing else planned. There is no show tomorrow night for Three Tortured Souls. We'll be back the following week with an episode. I don't know what we're doing yet, but we're taking off tomorrow just because we have family things that are going on. And with that, I think that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'm going to play my ending video, and I'm going to stop the broadcast, and I'm going to leave you with the quote that I give you every time. My basic philosophy is never stop learning. And that's it. See you next time.